Hi, can you hear me? Can you see me? Welcome back to my studio. We're gonna continue the chicken painting we just started earlier. I'm adjusting my camera. Just wanted to say hi. All right. So this is a portrait of one of my pet chickens. So the canvas size is 6 by 6 inches. So earlier this afternoon, what I did was basically creating the grid lines on this reference image that I took with my camera. After cropping this to square format because that's the painting format I want, then I laid out grid lines using grid software for drawing. Then I started drawing lines on canvas using this mixed brown. Then I directly sketched out the chicken, just placing the main big shapes. So let me explain about my paint I'm using today. I'm using titanium white and 3 primary colors, which is cadmium lemon yellow, permanent rose, and ultramarine blue. So this brown is mixture of all these 3 colors. And I added a little bit of odorless mineral spirit. I'm using Gamsol. And I have this little container, glass container with lid to use just a small portion of Gamsol. So after thinning this, I painted a wash of this brown for the entire canvas. Then I started adding more shades using the same brown to just create my blueprint of the painting by dividing big masses into light and dark shapes. I also wanted to make sure the proportion of the head and the body is accurate. So whenever I do animal painting, I try to make sure that the proportion is as realistic and as accurate as I can get without going into too much details in this initial stage. So it's very simplified version of realistic painting. And this is a very important foundation of my painting, whether it's animal, whether it's a still life, landscape, portrait. I always start out with recognizing the big shapes of light and shadow. And that's what creates my composition on the canvas. And at this stage, if I am not happy with what's happening, I can still go back and fix because I'm just using the same color, and I think I'm at the point that I am pretty happy with the placement of these big shapes of light and shadow. So now in this session, I'm going to show you how I use these three colors to add more interesting colors on this monochromatic painting. And just so you know, that you can buy many other colors that comes in all the color and the shade, including brown and black, include even red and orange. But because I'm teaching beginning oil painters, I'm trying to show you how to mix colors with just a limited palette of 3 primaries. So once you get used to this color mixing and color theory in general, you want to start exploring using different colors. But at the beginning, in order to make things easier, you want to start out with limited number of colors. The biggest advantage of using many colors is that it will give you a shortcut and saving time to mix colors when you have a limited time to paint. Like for example, when I have I'm doing like 1 hour quick draw demo at art show and event, I bring extra colors so that I can save time. And sometimes when I'm doing plein air painting with all the gears in my backpack, I prefer bringing limited palette so I can customize my colors, including green, purple, and orange, just from these 3 tubes of oil colors instead of bringing a dozen of paint tubes that weighs tons in my backpack. Okay. So I have more than 1 container of Gamsol, and this one is clear Gamsol, the odorless mineral spirit. And I also have another tank of Gamsol just for washing the brush. So here's my washing tank. So since I was using this brush to paint this brown, I want to clean this. So I'm going to demonstrate how I clean. I just dip this in the Gamsol with this metallic coil in a jar. And this will release the pigment between the bristle hair of the brush. And I just squeeze out the Gamsol in this paper towel. This one too. So I'm using bristle brush made of hog hair, and the sizes of the brush I use for small painting like this is anywhere between number 1, number 2 to maybe number 6. This one is number 6, the biggest brush I'm using today. You don't need anything bigger than that. So in other words, today I'm just using 3 different sizes, 2, 3, and 4. And these are flat. There are many shapes of brushes, and these are flat. And this one is filbert. It has more of a rounded brush tip. Okay, so now we're ready. I like using Gamsol in the glass container with airtight cap. And you can get all this from Amazon. When you join my membership called Painting Adventure Studio, you get all the shopping list and all the guidance on how to buy those art supplies, so you don't have to spend hours online doing random Google search looking for the right tools and art materials. Okay, so I'm saving this brown on the side so that I can use it later. Okay. Please let me know if you have trouble seeing my canvas or palette. Because sometimes I accidentally bump into my webcam, which is between me and the easel. So I'm sitting in the chair behind the webcam and looking around, looking at my canvas around the camera. So I could easily bump into it. So, okay. The first thing I want to do is to create my custom black so I can cover the darkest darks. So that's the typical painting step for my oil painting. So I use palette knife to mix a big portion of the same color rather than using brush. That way I can save these original piles on the top. I'm using tempered glass mounted on the gray paper as my mixing palette. So basically I'm mixing blue and permanent rose to create purple and adding a smidget of yellow to desaturate this purple. It's pretty close. Just to give you an idea, this is a color wheel painting that I painted with just all these 3 primary colors plus titanium white. So I created this black and created all these neutral grays from these 3 colors plus white, and all these colors on the color wheel, including this very pretty purple from this primary colors. I tried this with permanent red or other type of red, including cadmium red, medium or light. It becomes more brownish and it doesn't show this vibrant violet. So that's why I started using permanent rose, and permanent rose can make this vibrant red by adding a small portion of cadmium lemon yellow. And I created all this series of red from that combination as well. So there are a total of 35 different colors, including white, in this painting. So this is what basically we will do in my color mixing master class that is starting next month. So if you are interested in getting started with oil painting, or if you want to bring your painting level to the next level, you might want to consider joining this membership right now so that you can take advantage of a free bonus that includes this master class. That's right, you can get this color mixing master class course for free as a bonus by joining the membership this week. And the enrollment closes Tuesday, at the end of Tuesday this week. Okay, so I'm going to test this. I think I need more yellow. One of the most common questions I hear from students is, what color did you just mix? And in my class, my answer is always the same. I mixed all these 3 primaries. So it's just a matter of how much portion you use. So it's very, very versatile. And of course, once you get familiar with color mixing technique using palette knife or brush, you can expand your palette, adding more colors, and that will save you time. And sometimes you will realize that there are certain type of colors that you never use, and you don't need to invest a lot of money from the get-go just because some art school or instructor recommends to get them. I ended up with so many tubes of oil colors that I haven't even touched. I bought them just because it was on the supply list for someone's workshop, and I asked one of the painting instructor in the workshop that why did they well, so I asked one of them, and he said he was pressured to add all these extra colors on the art supply list for the class to because the gallery owner who was hosting the workshop wanted to impress the students. So now you know that just because someone lists a long shopping list of oil colors, you don't always have to buy everything on the list. Basically, by having these three primaries, the colors that I recommend here, you can get away with pretty much any painting, including workshop. You can just tell them that, like, oh, I didn't have time to buy them. I'm adding more dark colors such as blue and permanent rose to just bring this value a little bit darker. I have this grayscale on behind the glass palette, so that I can communicate the value scale better with my student in the class. Okay. I think that's close enough. It's a little bit leaning toward warm. Warm meaning more brown. Okay. Now I'm taking this number 2 brush, and I'm going to start testing. Just adding a smidge of yellow. You can have more than one variation of black depending on the spot you want to paint. Gathering the color here. The thin pile. I think I'm gonna add a touch of Gamsol to make it a little bit thinner. Okay. Want to make sure that the the size of her head is not gonna get too big. I keep looking at my reference image to make sure that I'm on the right track. I think that's another common mistake that I see among beginning painters. They don't spend enough time looking at the reference image and comparing their work with the reference, whether it's live model or the reference image. Okay, so this is the base of the waddle under the chin. So that's, I think this is very crucial to have this in the right placement, even though it's a little bit darker than it is. Okay. And the base of the comb. It's easier to make the color lighter than darker. I think I can always wipe it with paper towel if I make mistake. Trying to connect the darks as much as I can. Okay, I'm gonna separate this part. And this section is darker because it's away from the sunlight. I'm mixing a little bit of brown that I made earlier because this is not completely black, so this will look more natural, but still darker. So instead of moving my brush like this, I'm following the direction of her feathers. the bottom of her belly. I'm trying to simplify the shapes as much as I can at this stage. Okay, now I need to start making this a little bit lighter by adding the brown that I used earlier. Since I'm gonna be layering on top of this, I'm gonna block this shadow areas with a little bit darker colors than my finishing color that goes on top. That will create a more illusion of these feathers rather than painting each feather on the top. So notice that I'm flattening the brush as much as I can to deposit the color and covering the big shapes of the shadow areas. Once I transfer the image with grid method, I have more confidence to paint over the silhouette, and I can always go back. Okay, I'm adding more yellow to lighten it because yellow is the lightest color in the primary. I'm still not adding any white yet. I'm squinting my eyes to see the simplified shapes at this point. So I'm simplifying the shapes I see on the reference image. Then I can open my eyes to see where I'm painting. In case you're wondering if I'm squinting all the time, I try not to. If this was a bigger painting, I would be using much bigger brushes so that I can cover the areas much faster. I'm adding a little bit more Gamsol. Okay. The faster you move your hands, the faster you can paint. I think that's pretty obvious. I'm adding more permanent rose to warm this up. So I'm reminding myself I'm working on the darker areas now, moving into lighter areas. Since I don't see any distinct black in this reference image, I'm already lightening my mixture with other colors. Okay. So this is the leg. And the other leg. So this is the half point. So I'm gonna step back. I mean, I'm sitting in the office chair, so it has casters, and I can just push my chair back to see this from distance. Okay. Now I'm gonna work on the background shadow areas. I'm gonna clear my mixing space. I'm gonna save this on the side for later. Another common mistake I see with struggling beginners is that they don't clean their palette often enough. Especially toward the end, they want to try to get away with dirty paint, dirty paint on dirty palette, and of course, their finished painting will be very muddy, meaning the wrong color in the wrong place because the color they're mixing on the dirty palette is not the right color anymore. Okay, I'm just removing this. Okay, so now I want to work on magenta. So you can achieve this by using alizarin crimson, but I don't have that today, so I'm mixing my magenta from permanent rose and ultramarine blue. Those are my primary colors today. Now I'm gonna use number 6 Bristol brush. It's flat. It's flat, but because I've been using this for a while, the edges of this square brush tip wear out by getting scratched on the canvas. I'm using baby wipes to clean my hands that covered with oil paint, so please bear with me. I don't have a water or septic system in this studio building. I don't have a place to wash my hands nearby. Like I have to walk back to our main house, which is like 100 feet away outside. So to save time, I use baby wipes, and it actually works better than washing my hands with with soap and water. So it dries my hand too much, but baby wipes has a little bit of aloe in it, so it keeps my hands softer, nice and soft. Okay, so I'm gonna test this. Okay, maybe that's too strong. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I'll add a little bit more. So basically, I mix a big pile of colors with a palette knife. Then I use my brush to make final adjustment. It depends on my mood. I think the problem with mixing color with blush is that it it gets so much paint on the hair, and it takes a lot more paint to make fine adjustment. I don't know. It's kind of tricky thing. But if I use palette knife, using palette knife meaning clean palette knife. Like I have to wipe it every time I grab a new color. But after by using palette knife, I can make sure that the color is mixed better without supplies. I think that's more like it. So this will be the underpainting of the grassy background. I love layering different colors to create visual interest. Just like Monet's paintings, like his painting of haystack. If you look closely at his painting, you see so many different colors, and if you look at them from distance, it visually blends in and makes the illusion of a neutral color. So that's exactly what I'm going after. So it may not really matter on a small canvas like this, 6x6, but it makes a more difference when I'm making a big painting. So I'm still making sure that the value relationship is accurate and drawing is not messed up. I'm still painting thin, but I don't want to get too much Gamsol, because Gamsol works as paint thinner and it starts lifting off the previous layer of paint. if I'm not careful. So I'm using dark purple instead of dark brown because it's cooler compared to brown. It has more blue in it. That makes this dark red cooler. And I want this to recede in the distance. So that's my main goal of this painting, to create the illusion of depth, even though the canvas size is small. So I'm darkening the corners to create a more vignette effect. So I'm not following exactly what I see in the image. I'm designing my own composition here. Did I tell you how much I love painting chickens? We have 14 pet chickens, free ranging in the backyard. Now, I started painting chickens when I heard about the victory of a Proposition 2 in California about regulating the animal cruelty in the farm, including banning the battery cages for the chicken factories, chicken farms. That's 2010, and that's exactly when I started painting a series of chickens. My grandparents in Japan, in northern Japan, I'm originally from Tokyo, Japan, and my grandpa was ill, so he was not working anymore. He was a retired police officer. But my grandma was raising chickens for egg farm, and there were like hundreds of white chickens in the battery cages, and we are not even allowed to hang out in a chicken coop because we were not allowed to play with chickens. We're not even hang out in a chicken coop alone. I'm just wiping off this mistake. I want to keep this area, the lit part, more warm. So that was a long time ago. My grandma retired from chicken farming and moved into my uncle's house. But I had no idea that having pet chickens would be so much fun. And they all have different personalities, and they are much smarter than we think. They know when to go back to their coop. They never overeat, so we can just leave food for them. They can regulate their own diet as long as they have healthy food available. They don't need to be vaccinated. They don't need to be, we don't have to walk them every day. We used to have two dogs at home in Japan, in Tokyo, and I loved going for a walk with them, but that was when we were a kid and going to school every day. We didn't have to worry about taking care of them every day. Okay, now I'm gonna step back and see the value relationship. Okay, now I'm gonna start layering orange for the lid part and brighter yellow for the lid part of the chicken. First, I need to clean up my palette. I'm gonna move this black to the side. And purple to the side. You see I have these piles of extra colors standing by, so that I can reuse them later. I'm gonna adjust my reference image so that you can see my painting a little bit better. And if you are watching this from your smartphone, I recommend turning your phone sideways so that you can see a bigger picture. The bigger you can see what am I doing in a bigger area. Because if you have your phone vertically, you may not be seeing the details. Cleaning the palette. So if you have a bigger palette, that is better because you have advantage of a huge mixing area, so you don't have to keep cleaning the palette as often as I do on this little palette. This palette is about 10 by 8 inches, and it just propped up on the easel right next to my painting panel, canvas panel, just so that you can see everything in one screen without complication. My laptop is not very powerful, so I realized that they crash if I try to connect multiple cameras at the same time and the live stream to YouTube and Facebook at the same time. Not to mention recording. Those activities take a lot of computer resources, and sometimes it works and sometimes doesn't work. And I don't know if you were here earlier this week when I was doing live classes. I had technical trouble with streaming, so I had to reschedule or I had to delay. Okay, so I'm using a clean brush number 2. Okay, so I'm taking clean part of yellow. Maybe I'll just paint this here to see what happens. I think that's too yellow, so this needs to be modified. So we always test and adjust. So that's a like scientific experiment. So I'm adding permanent rose to create my orange. This gives me so much flexibility in terms of the variety of yellow. And I might even add a little bit of white. So I'm gonna put this in this spare area so that I have this white nearby. Now watch this. See, I don't have to worry about contaminating my original pile of white with my brush. Okay, this can get warmer. So this looks more yellow on the screen of my tablet on the left, but it's a lot more like beige or orange. I guess that's why it's called buff Orpington. So instead of yellow Orpington. And the camera lies about the exposure and it makes it look overexposed, but it's not this pure white. I'm trying not to touch the shadow areas with this brush yet. I touched the brown by accident, so I need to wipe. I'm looking for the easiest shape to tackle. So if you're just joining me, I'm just blocking the main color shapes with the underpainting colors. So it may not be the most realistic colors, but I'm also going to layer on top of this. This part needs to be lighter. I'm just gonna make a point of this paper towel and wipe this away because I feel like I'm haunted by this shadow color. Now I'm gonna ignore this lacy shadow casted by the tail feathers for now. Instead of painting around the shadow, small shadow shapes, I keep cleaning my brush so that the color I'm applying stays pure. Okay, add this. And this section is not exactly in the shadow. It is in the shadow, but it's also getting reflected light from the sky. So it's a little bit cooler. I'm just exaggerating the darkness, and I'm gonna layer with lighter color on the top. So this blue reflected light suggests that it's sunny day with blue sky. So I can tell so much story in a little painting like this by utilizing the colors. Okay. Now let's have fun and make the comb. I'm wiping my brush with paper towel, and I want to see if I can mix my red. I'm grabbing cream yellow and put it on the side as my spare yellow, so I can keep reaching out with my brush. Okay, so this is red. This is as red as I can get, and I mixed it with permanent rose and a hint of yellow. So I'm just generalizing the shape of the comb for now without any detail added to it. And in this size of painting, it may not really matter how detailed this zigzag of a comb is. We'll see. But I know with a large painting, I will spend more time carving out these delicate shapes of the top of the comb on her head. But just by adding this red shape already suggests that this is a chicken. I know I'm not trying to paint an object, the recognizable object, but if you see this as a chicken, people expect to see some kind of suggestion of a chicken. We have so many different breeds of chickens, and not all breeds come with the classic shapes of comb, but people who are not familiar with chickens may not understand that. So I'm trying to simplify the classic recognizable shapes of chickens that seem to attract more more viewers. Okay. I'm stepping back to evaluate where I am. I'm just pushing my office chair away from the easel and take a moment to evaluate where I am. Okay, so what bothers me is this little triangle shape of her back. She's very fluffy and the feathers are creating this rounded shape, but it's basically her tail. This needs to be a little bit lighter. So I'm thinking, what can I do? I think I want to cover the entire canvas with this underpainting. So I'm gonna grab orange to finish my foreground area in the light, because we already did the shadow areas with magenta, and for the lit part of the foreground. Sorry, I'm tearing this paper towel sheets so that I have more paper towel for cleaning. I like to cut this paper towel sheet in half so that I don't waste tons of paper towel every time I just need a tiny cleaning, especially for small things like this. Okay, I'm looking at my brush selection. Okay, I have number 4 here. Now I'm gonna mix my orange. Okay, I'm gonna clean this because I don't wanna have white in this. Oops. Don't like that sound. yellow. So if you're just joining me, I'm using cadmium lemon yellow, permanent rose, and ultramarine blue as my primaries, plus titanium white today. Sometimes I swap around with different color combination to have my primaries. But in my color mixing class, this is exactly the color palette I use, and we paint the entire grayscale and color wheel, which contains 35 different colors. Okay, that sounds good. That's looking good. I'm gonna replenish my yellow on the palette. I'm wearing a studio apron, so I can use the corner of my apron to twist this paint cap. This cadmium yellow lemon is from Utrecht. That's the name of the brand. But as long as the number of pigment on the in the label matches, it doesn't really matter which company you use. Especially where if you are just starting out, it doesn't matter. So this one is PY37, and different brand has different naming of the color. So if you are not sure, don't worry about the name, but go with the number of the pigment. Then you can get the same result as the instructor's lesson, or similar. I must add that everybody paints in a different way, even if you are trying to copy. So just because you are using exactly the same materials, you may or you may not get the same painting at the end. And that's okay, because you are on the right track to develop your personal style, just like your signature. And that's why it's called the signature style. I'm mixing a little bit of Gamsol to lubricate this and cover the lit part of the ground. And the grass. Might add a smidget of more red, because red is complementary color of green, and it makes a interesting visual effect when they are juxtaposed. So I'm gonna keep the background entirely in the shadow and in the distance, because I want to create the depth, illusion of this depth if I can, and I don't want to bring the background forward. Okay, so this is the completion of my underpainting. I'm evaluating this from distance. Okay, so now we're ready to add the next layer. I'm gonna move this on the side. Okay, I'm gonna take 5 minutes and continue with the next layer. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Can you hear me okay? Now it's time to have fun. I'm gonna start mixing the final colors and use palette knife. Might use some medium. It's definitely worth going through this ugly stage, ugly duckling stage. I got some paint on my glasses, so I need to clean it with glass cleaner. And plus, I can see my painting from distance to see the general shapes and the value relationship. And I'm making my plans. My plan is to start modifying the values and color temperature. So first thing first, I want to do the yellow ochre part. So yellow ochre, you can make the yellow ochre from the tube of yellow ochre, or you can add these three primary colors to mix your own custom yellow ochre. I've tried different blends of yellow ochre, and they come in different colors, basically. So I still have to modify. Let's see, I'm gonna test this. This is dirty brush that I use for shadow. I'm gonna try this here. It might work. I'm gonna grab some solvent-free gel. This is basically oil-based medium. So if I am following this fat over lean principle of layering the oil colors, this is a good choice. Gamsol has no oil in it, so it's opposite of fat. It's lean. That's why I used that for the initial wash and initial layer. One reason I want to use this medium is to improve the viscosity, and also I want to have this transparency. So I'm painting a general shapes of shadow going with the direction of her feathers. And because we waited, we had short break, the previous layers are starting to settle down. So even though they are still not dry to touch, they are still wet, it's easier to layer on the top. So it's worth waiting. And if you wait too long, they will probably dry completely to touch. Instead of trying to cover up everything like house paint, I'm intentionally leaving some underpainting showing. And also I'm using very light brush touch so that it doesn't lift off the existing layer too much. It does a little bit, and they blend. That's nice thing about doing this wet on wet approach. So basically, we are doing alla prima painting approach today because we're painting all this in one session, even though I'm taking breaks in between. So if I wait this until tomorrow to continue, it won't be considered alla prima, I guess. So in other words, my goal is to finish this today. Don't want to make this too light. I'm adding more medium to keep the transparency. So if this were a bigger canvas, I might be using palette knife right now to create more visual interest, but I'm waiting for the right time. Sorry. Now I'm gonna adjust this mixture with my custom black that I used for the ground. It's a little bit cooler with more brown, more blue, because it's away from the light source. So it's opposite of the sunny orange, and it has some influence of the green grass and blue sky on this side. Okay. I want to create this reflected light on her back. So I'm gonna add a little bit of white. And maybe magenta. I think what I need is blue. So I'm gonna put this fresh blue in my standby section so I can just easily reach out and mix in. Now I'm gonna test this. Okay, I need more white and blue. So it's creating bluish gray. I'll add a little bit of magenta. That goes here too. This is her earlobe. Not earlobe, the little fluffy short feathers covering her ear. And it's very light color in person. So it's not the buff, like it's not beige like the rest of the color. And with the deflected light from the sky, it's bluish. Now I'm gonna switch back to the other number 2 brush I was using for orange series, orange family. I'm gonna take this orange from the spare section. I'm gonna add white. And I'm gonna test this. That's too pinkish. I'm gonna get more yellow here and leave it in my standby section. Okay. I wanna make this lighter. So I'm gonna take pure lemon yellow with more white and touch of the mixture I had to cool down a little bit. So her back, the feathers on her back is a little bit lighter color than rest of the body, just like her ears. Getting a little bit medium. So this is not just overexposed. It's actually light color, and that creates this turquoise blue, the cyan blue in the shadow area. I touched my shadow. I touched the shadow, so I need to wipe. Adding more white to this yellow. And a little bit of medium. So my paint is getting thicker and thicker. I'm really liking this. Now I'm gonna pause this and I'm gonna put the background grassy colors. Let's see what I got. So remember, I still have this number 6 brush for the magenta in the shadow area. I can use that to paint the background. But first, I'm gonna move this down and save this for later. Okay, I'm gonna clean this mixing area. Now I'm gonna make my green by adding yellow into blue. How cool is that? So easy. You don't need green paint. You can just mix your own green. I'm gonna test this. think it's too neon green like. So I can add some of this custom black I mixed earlier because it has all the primaries. So I can make this darker and more neutralized. Okay, let's test this with a little bit of medium. A little bit more medium, but not too much because it's kind of that too translucent. So if I don't want to make it too thin, I just mix with the initial layer color, the color of the initial layer. I'm carving out the shape of her head, the comb. I think I need more magenta in here. There you go. Looks like this is working. Try to eliminate as much glare as possible. also creating the brush marks that suggest the direction of the tall grass. Okay, now let's move to the foreground shadow. This is also a good time to carve out the body of this chicken. So basically, I'm just breaking in these shadow shapes. While carving out the figure. Normally, I don't spend this much time in one session. I usually take a long break between sessions. But the great thing about oil painting is that I can put this aside and take care of other business and come back. And the palette is still nice and wet with fresh color. If you are doing this with acrylics or watercolor or gouache, they will dry pretty quickly. I wouldn't say as soon as you mix, but you just can't take long break like a oil painting. So I would consider it very challenging and advanced. So if you are busy juggling with other project and family in your life, oil painting is very forgiving because you can just leave it. And I store my palette in the special palette box with a lid, so I can keep my fresh paint overnight or just even lunch break without worrying our pet getting onto my palette and drawing the painting that I just mixed. Let's say like I have so many colors already mixed here, and I can keep using this throughout my painting session as long as I save this palette. Okay, I'm gonna step back and see what's happening. I want to add a little bit of magenta to make nice gradation from the corner, right corner into the center. To also suggest this dark speckles of the ground. So it's not just the one solid color. And also I'm using this magenta. Now I want to kind of flick the brushes into the lid side to show these the shadows with tall grass. Okay. I'm gonna step back and evaluate my painting. I see my artist friend popping in to say hi. Okay, so let's work on the grass in the sun. I'm gonna put this aside for now. I put this over here. I'm cleaning my mixing area again. Okay. I'm gonna take yellow. I think I will use more yellow than before. And some blue. more yellow and some medium. Got some yellow ochre. I think I'm gonna mix more yellow ochre into this because it's too egalic neon green. Okay, so I'm gonna test this maybe here. Maybe I need to neutralize a little bit more with orange. For this one, I don't need to completely blend everything because I want to have texture. Now I want to make this a little bit darker by adding this shadow color of the grass. So I have two variations of the light green. You know what? I think I'm gonna add this farther down so that I can juxtapose the shadow and lit parts of the glass. And some magenta here. Now it's getting more fun. I mean, it was fun earlier, but it's getting more exciting. Okay, I want to block this out with undertone of the shadow. So I can enhance these tall grasses. I can do the same thing over here. neutralizing this green with magenta because it's farther away from us. And I can layer these bright colors on the top. And stepping back to see what's happening. And taking a sip of water. Well, if you have any questions, please write your questions in the comment, and I will try getting back to you when I can. I didn't mean to do that. That's a little bit of reflected light from this grass. So it's more greenish. I think I need to mix more of this shadow grass color. No, wait a minute. I do have it here. I'm gonna bring this back to the main stage. Since I gave a little bit of extra time, the paint on the background is settled down a little bit, so it's easier to deal with. adding more violet into this to make cooler version of this. And carving out the shape of the cone. Okay, I'll work on the beak a little bit. So that's basically cool pink. Oh, that's maybe too much blue, but it's okay. I'm just gonna take a little bit of that. See if I can show her beak. Let's see. I need some dark red. For her face. Since this is such a small painting, I'm not sure if it works to paint all the details in her face. I know that her eye is between her nostril and the ear. Maybe I can make this darker so that I can combine the eye and eyelid. That's too blue. I'm gonna cover up the general area of her face with this dark muted red. Keep adjusting. It's too light. That's too light and too cool. That means I need to get some brown. No, I want to make it darker. I'm grabbing some of this dark green to neutralize and darken at the same time. It's such a tiny spot, but it takes time. The waddle. The hot yellow is pink, but it's in the shadow, in the shade, and has reflected light from the sky. So it's basically violet. Adjusting her chest. Maybe a little bit lighter. And cooler. Something like that. I'm also creating half tone between the shadow and the lit part of the feathers. The reflected light from the grass. Okay. Wow, that was too dark. It needs to be warmer here. Then that's more red than the green. Okay. Now I need to have half tone between the shadow and light of her neck. Okay. Grabbing some orange, yellow. Oh, I did have yellow here. Some more medium. So her neck is like a cylinder turning away from the light source. So the transition between the light and shadow needs to be softer. Also, this cast shadow of the tail on her wing. Maybe too greenish. And too dark. So I'm gonna mix that. soft edge here. And it's a little bit lighter down here. And the edges here are softer, but it's different kind because it's not turning away from the light source, but it's just not getting much light down here. So have some gradation from the tip of feathers to the wing. I hope you're enjoying this demo. if nothing else, I hope you are getting the point that this takes time. So I'm trying to see if I can use this bright orange for the transition colors. And sometimes everybody gets stuck with their painting, so it's very nice to have a mentor to ask for help. And that's exactly what our painting adventure membership is about, to support each other and get clarity in our painting project. Grabbing fresh paper towel, and I'm gonna work on the highlights. More white and medium. I'm flicking my brush to get this soft edges. Need to clean my brush. I mean, just wiping. Okay. The paint is so thick that every time I touch it, it wants to lift the layer beneath it. Trying to create this random fluffy sections. Let's see. Can't get away with a dirty brush. Soften this edge. So I need to put more halftone here to turn this form, to create the form. So it's still using a variation of yellow ochre here. Adjusting the value and temperature. Makes too much green, so I'm gonna make magenta. With some white. And put it on top. just scumbling on top of this layer. Now I'm adding half tone here to turn the form around away from the light source. Painting shadow is not easy, but it's fun if you can do it right. So now I'm starting to scramble different shade of the shadow colors to create visual interest, while adjusting the value relationship. Just like Monet's haystack. Honestly, I can spend several days on this. If you go to my Facebook page, Naomi Gray Art, you will see my finished painting of this same chicken in 18 by 24 inch. And that was actually my second painting of the same image. So I'm not sure how many times I painted this. But every time I'm kind of experimenting something different, like texture, maybe the maybe the color palette, the palette I'm using. today I'm painting with this 3 primary of cadmium lemon yellow, ultramarine blue, and permanent rose. I know I use different color palette when I painted the other two, but you can see it's doable. It's definitely possible. And my verdict is that it doesn't really matter as long as I take time. I need to add a little bit of white. To have a little bit more opacity here. I want to emphasize this translucent part of the cone. Okay. Creating darker brown here. Since I'm not going for photorealism, I'm hesitant to use super fine brushes for the detail. Carving out her ear with the dark color. And a little bit of blending here. But not so much. Now I want to enhance the dark background. Around her face. I'm mixing more magenta with ultramarine blue and permanent rose, and smidget of yellow to desaturate. I know this would definitely work if I work on this after it's dry, but I'm just challenging myself to see how much I can do in alla prima, meaning painting in one session. Okay. I'm making the magenta, lighter version of magenta. And a little bit of medium. Kind of accentuating the ground. It's in the foreground. It could be like tiny wildflowers. So this will kind of cancel out or offset the egaric crazy green I don't want to overdo it, but now I want to cool down the background green. I'm going to add some blue and maybe a little bit of white so that it doesn't become too dark. This will create more atmospheric perspective because it's so much cooler in the background shadow. I also need to fix the silhouette of the chicken. I'm going to clean my mixing area and add some more medium. Now, if you are interested in learning how to paint with oils, interested in how to improve your drawing skills, we are open for enrolling new students to our old painting membership called Painting Adventure Studio, and it's closing on Tuesday. So if you are interested, please check out the information page. It's the link is in the description. It's paintingstudio.xyz/join. Again, it's paintingstudio.xyz/join, and you will find more about our membership program. Now this part is very yellow, isn't it? very gold. And I see some orange. In this transition zone. I try not to overdo it. I'm stepping back, pushing my office chair back and checking out. Okay. I'm gonna make more yellow ochre from my brown and cadmium lemon yellow. If you have yellow ochre, you can go ahead and use that, but my goal of the day is to do this alla prima painting with 3 primary colors. It's quite challenging, to be honest, but it's fun. I'm a challenger. But also, mixing color is kind of soothing. It's almost therapeutic to see these beautiful colors getting mixed right in front of my eyes and putting that on the canvas. I'm adding a little bit of dark blue here to cool down. Maybe a little bit of white. Let's see. I can lighten this even more. And even cooler, maybe? Changing the brush stroke direction so that it mimics the feathers, fluffy feathers. oil painting, since oil paint doesn't dry fast like acrylics and other medium with mainly water base, so it gives me extra time to experiment with mixing color, and I can move around, move the pigment around canvas. That's really forgiving. I'm scooping up more paint by pushing brush forward rather than pulling down. I think I can make this lighter. It still shows darker when it's juxtaposed to the lit part. I think I need to work on this orange in the transition area. It's very warm. I'm trying not to overdo it, but I like it. Can add more permanent rows to add variety. It's been a while since I painted my original studies. I kind of forgot how I painted it. In some way, I got smarter, and maybe I got lazier. Think more white. Fixing the highlight area. Basically, I'm just putting white into yellow. For the highlight. Then I'll adjust with a surprise. Flicking my brush strokes to create these soft edges. Very bright, super bright. This part is a little bit darker. Yes, it's darker gray. Let me know if you can hear me okay. Hi there. Thank you for joining me. I'm doing a painting demo marathon this week. I see a little highlight here, but I think I'm gonna ignore. And just make this into one piece of wing. I'm gonna blend this a little bit, soften the edges. Yeah, if you want to learn to paint soft, paint loose with soft edges, I can't recommend enough about oil painting because it's so forgiving. Creating violet. Okay, this comes down a little bit more like that. So this juxtaposition of light color against the dark red will create the illusion that this red is much darker. The cheek. Maybe a little bit darker here. I'm using the same brush for the light and shadow. But it's okay. I keep wiping it so it's not too dirty. And I'm gonna carve out her beak with dark color. With a little bit of medium. We'll see what happens. Getting close. Okay, I'm gonna step back and evaluate. I'm gonna stand up and stretch my legs. And drinking a sip of water. Okay, so if I have 5 more minutes, what can I do? How can I make this better in 5 minutes? The painting finale. Okay. mixing the grass color for the final touch. My secret weapon, the palette knife. Creating texture. And kind of going wild here. Maybe I just want to suggest the leg a little bit. But it doesn't look like she's floating. I want to anchor her on the ground. Try to make a cool version of this violet. Without making too light. To give atmospheric effect here. I don't want to give too much texture because I don't want to call too much attention in the back. And maybe something like in between here so that it doesn't look too separated between the foreground and background. Now I can add this pinkier magenta. In the foreground. Yes. I'm bringing this number 4 brush with maybe more orange so that I have neutralized green. I want to carve out her body here. To accentuate the separation of light and shadow here. Oh, it's getting close. Flicking this up to just to suggest a few few pieces of grass. Okay, I'm getting really close. Okay, I'm gonna make sure that these fluffy feathers scooping up my paint and pulling it, leaving it. And I will have soft edge just here and there, not everywhere. It doesn't have to be everywhere. Okay. Soften the edges between the light and shadow here. I'm gonna grab extra white and yellow. Put this here for highlight. Now you may be wondering, gee, like this looks so yellow. It's okay. I have a solution. I just want to make sure the shape of the lit part is what I want. Okay. I need more mixing space. I feel like I need a little bit more warm color.
Dinner is ready and served by the time.
Okay, I think I need to hurry up and finish this. My hubby is not happy. This is almost like a lost edge between her belly and the grass. So very very soft edge for sure. But I don't need to call too much attention to her legs anyway. You can't see it anyway. It's just a suggestion of her leg. And it has this fluffy feathers covering her legs like skirt, which I really love, especially in the sunlight. Now I can add a little bit of highlight here too. Okay. The legs are tricky, to be honest, because it's there, but I don't want to call too much attention in this painting, for sure. can't. I keep hearing this theme song from Mission Impossible. It's not like I don't think I can make it, but that's the song I used for my recent YouTube short. So I keep hearing that in my head. Have you had that kind of experience? Like you listen to this song, particular song, and you just can't get away from this. Can't escape from that song. I don't know. Like if I sing that song, maybe my video will get copyright violation warning. So I'll try to not to sing it. I know it's a little bit darker than the it looks more natural here. Okay, I said 5 minutes, but it's been more than 50 minutes, I guess. I lied. I'm sorry. But I know it's getting close. That's why I don't want to quit now. Okay, I'm going to take permanent red, permanent rose. Take some back here. Don't need this much. And titanium white. Making pink. Very light pink. Adding some medium. I think having supportive family members is important for pursuing art. Peter's mom was a professional watercolor artist, so he grew up with this. His mom spending a lot of time in her studio or painting outdoors. neglecting her family. Well, not neglecting, but her husband was not very happy that she was spending so much time, I guess. Is that what you guys have to deal with too? So I'm adding this permanent rose to offset the yellowness, offset the yellow, because pink is cooler. So without using just pure white, I can create illusion that it has this very bright white, not white, but light color without depending on the white straight front tube. I can even make this lighter. So you see, I have the grayscale card, which I cut in half and put it behind the tempered glass palette. So I can paint over this to check my value. This, my paint got contaminated. But if I were to put this here, it's value 8 with a little bit more white. Can make the value 9. I know it's not easy to see the value relationship from the webcam. That's exactly why I put this behind my glass palette, so that I can let my students know, hey, like, if you're mixing the pink, your value is between 9 and 8. And my students don't have to have the card behind their palette. They can just have the grayscale card next to their palette, so that they can just compare. All right, so I'm gonna add this. I guess I talk too much, and maybe that's why I'm taking so much time painting. I don't know. But painting is so much fun. Now I can go back to the yellow and a little bit of medium. I think I'm gonna add orange here. To act as my halftone. I really like this section with the orange. Maybe I'm gonna put more there. this magenta just to go over the black part of the nostril. It's too, I think it's too dark. And maybe I can just put a little bit darker color to suggest her eye. Maybe. Can go a little bit more. Okay. Literally the final touch here. That this pushes her back behind. Behind the glass, tall glass. Here's how I sign. Well, my friends, there you have it. Well, have a nice evening, and I'm gonna go eat dinner. Bye.